Hey there, all you theater-loving loonies! Welcome back to Broadway by Ghostlight. I'm Mark Bonanni, and this is episode 17 of Broadway Jeopardy!
I am 17, going on 18.
There is a new episode of Broadway Jeopardy every Thursday starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss an episode. I'd really love to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, though that may be a pipe dream, but you know, if you don't have a dream...
How you gonna have a dream come true?
That's right, Bloody Mary. Anyways, we've got 26 all-new clues waiting to test your Broadway brains, so let's jump right into this week's episode. This is Broadway Jeopardy! Taking our look at our categories for this week, we start as always with last week's final Jeopardy category, which is Meet Cutes, looking at how some musical theater lovers first met. That's followed by West Side Story. The day this video is out, September 26th, is the 67th anniversary of the show's opening night on Broadway, so I had to give the classic musical its own category. After that, we have Beautiful City. In this category, the answer will be a show or a song with a U.S. city in the title. Then we have The Company Way. This category deals with various companies and corporations found in shows. And finally, we have musicals within musicals. After we had the fake musical category a few episodes ago, many of you said you wanted one about fake musicals found in real musicals, like Springtime for Hitler in The Producers, for example. So here you go. Each clue will be about a musical that only exists within the world of a real musical. And we end with the final Jeopardy round, of course, so be sure to keep track of your scores and let me know how you fare in the comments. I love seeing how you all do each week. We start off with the $200 round, the overture round as it's known in these parts, where the questions are a little easier and the difficulty builds to a thrilling crescendo of trivia toughness by the end. Kicking off the game with Meet Cutes, your $200 clue is... In this musical, based on the iconic rom-com of the same name, lawyer Edward Lewis first meets his future love Vivian when he picks her up off the street where she works as an escort. What is Pretty Woman? The musical is based on the film, of course, starring Julia Roberts and Richard Gere and directed by Gary Marshall. I know physical media is dying out or already dead, but if you happen to have the DVD of Pretty Woman, you have to listen to the audio commentary track by Gary Marshall. It is absolutely hysterical. Actually, anytime Gary Marshall did a commentary track for one of his films, it's almost as enjoyable as the film itself. I loved Gary Marshall. Moving on to West Side Story, the $200 clue is, while the lyrics are by Stephen Sondheim, the music for West Side Story is by this master of music and legendary conductor. Who is Leonard Bernstein? Though Bernstein has always been a prominent figure in the theater and orchestral worlds, he has recently become even more known thanks to the Bradley Cooper film Maestro. The legendary Maestro's other Broadway musicals include On the Town and Wonderful Town. He was a man about town, I guess. The $200 clue in the Beautiful City category is, we hear the clang 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 of the trolley in this classic movie musical that was adapted for the stage in 1989. What is Meet Me in St. Louis? The 1944 Judy Garland film was a massive success when it premiered, in fact the second highest grossing for MGM at that point, behind only Gone with the Wind. Besides the ever popular trolley song,
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell.
the other memorable tune to come out of that film is the seminal classic
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
The stage version of Meet Me in St. Louis in 1989 starred Donna Kane as Esther, the Judy Garland role, as well as George Hearn as her father, and Betty Garrett as Katie the maid. Let's do things the company way now. The $200 clue is, in this musical, set in the 1920s, our of-the-minute leading lady, originally played by Sutton Foster, gets a job at Sincere Trust Insurance Company with the plan to marry the boss, Trevor Graydon. What is Thoroughly Modern Millie? I adore this show. One of my favorite songs to sing along to is the rapid patter song, The Speed Test, where Millie is interviewing for the job at Sincere Trust, and the big boss Trevor Graydon is dictating a letter to her. The original Trevor Graydon was one of my favorite actors ever, Mark Kudic.
My eyes are fully open to my awful situation, so I'm writing you a letter to demand an explanation.
And wrapping up the overture round with the musicals within musicals category, the last $200 clue is, former spouses Fred Graham and Lily Vanessy star in a musical version of Taming of the Shrew titled This, the name of the actual Cole Porter musical it's featured in. What is Kiss Me Kate? Yes, the musical they are putting on in Kiss Me Kate is called Kiss Me Kate. One of the amazing things about Kiss Me Kate is not only is it widely considered Cole Porter's best work, both writing the music and lyrics for the show, but it's also considered one of the best golden age musicals, period. But it also brought Cole Porter into the modern era of musicals. A witty and urbane figure, Cole Porter had great success in the 1920s and 30s with reviews and review-like shows that were common at the time. But after the Rodgers and Hammerstein revolution in the 1940s, the time of Porter had seemingly passed. But Cole Porter was certainly not going to let himself be passé, and he surprised the theater world in 1948 with Kiss Me Kate, a brilliant and bona fide integrated musical comedy. I hope you all found that round to be a breeze, or at least a little gusty. Let's move on to the only slightly harder $400 round now. Circling back to Meet Cutes, the $400 clue is, in this beautiful musical with a score by Adam Gettle, a young woman meets the love of her life in Florence, Italy, when her hat blows off her head and he catches it. What is The Light in the Piazza is the correct answer. The lush 2005 musical was seen fairly recently as part of City Center Encore's 2023 season, starring Ruthie Ann Miles and newcomer Anna Zalvelson. It was one of the most glorious, heart-wrenching, stunningly beautiful productions I've seen, and I am begging for it to get a full production on Broadway.
On a central square, in a city made of statues and stories. Go on and tell me what they mean. It ignited there like a beacon coming out of the dark.
Let's mambo over to West Side Story. Mambo! Your $400 clue is, this is the name of Maria's brother who is killed by Tony during the Rumble. Who is Bernardo? The leader of the Puerto Rican gang, the Sharks, Bernardo was originally played by Ken Leroy on Broadway and in the original London production. In that original London production, Bernardo's rival, Riff, the leader of the Caucasian Jets, was played by George Chakiris. In an ironic bit of whitewashing, Chakiris would defect from the Jets for the film version of West Side Story, where he would play Bernardo, winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for the role. Over in Beautiful City, the $400 clue is, we first meet Tracy Turnblad in Hairspray when she wakes up with this song on her lips. What is Good Morning Baltimore? The idea of adapting John Waters' offbeat comedy film of the same name began in 1998. Stage and screen composing legend Mark Sheeman and his partner Scott Whitman were asked to come up with a few songs for a demo to see if the show would work, and Good Morning Baltimore was one of those original 3 songs. And it clearly worked very well. The show had run 6 years on Broadway with numerous long-running productions around the world and film and TV versions to boot. I predict we'll be seeing Hairspray again soon on Broadway. I think that show is due for a revival. The $400 clue for The Company Way is Violet, Judy, and Dora Lee all work at Consolidated Industries in this musical where they despise their boss, Franklin Hart Jr., who is, according to the women, a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot. What is 9 to 5 is the answer. I remember at the merch booth for 9 to 5, they sold a shirt that said the sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical, bigot line on it. And I always wondered, who would want to wear that shirt that says that on it? I wouldn't want people to think that I'm like that and proud of it to boot. Anyway, merch is weird. And over in the musicals within a musical category, your $400 clue is, in this musical, brothers Nick and Nigel Bottom put on the musical Omelette, which Nick is sure will be better than Shakespeare. What is Something Rotten? One of my favorite musicals of all time, though I'm a bit biased. Something Rotten deals with the Bottom brothers, who are budding playwrights in the time of superstar Shakespeare. Nick Bottom pays a soothsayer to look into the future to see what Shakespeare's greatest play will be so he can swipe the idea for himself, but things get a little lost in translation. Hamlet becomes omelet. The soothsayer named Thomas Nostradamus, he's the nephew of the more famous Nostradamus, gets one thing right about the future though. He sees the most wonderful form of theater will be something called
a musical.
Let's plow right on through to the $600 round. Your clue in the Meet Cute category is, in the musical Sweet Charity, Charity Hope Valentine meets Oscar Lindquist at the local YMCA when the pair get stuck here. What is the elevator? Yes, Charity and Oscar first meet when the elevator at the Y gets stuck, which is especially bad news for the very claustrophobic Oscar. Luckily, Charity talks him down and the pair begin a tentative romance. Moving on to our anniversary show West Side Stories category, the $600 clue is, the musical, based on Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, swaps out the iconic balcony setting from the play with this setting. What is a fire escape? In my opinion, I think the fire escape scene in West Side Story is every bit as iconic as the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet.
Good night, good night. Sleep well, and when you dream, dream of me.
Visiting a beautiful city, the $600 clue is, in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Lorelei Lee sings this song about her humble beginnings in her southern hometown. What is A Little Girl from Little Rock? The stage musical Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was the big breakout role for the legendary Carol Channing. Besides Little Girl from Little Rock, the other beloved songs by Julie Stein and lyricist Leo Robbins to come out of the musical were Bye Bye Baby and Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Though, admittedly, most people associate the show now, particularly Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, with Marilyn Monroe, who played Carol Channing's role in the famous film version. Up next in The Company Way category, your $600 clue is, the executives at Consolidated Life all use the apartment of employee Chuck Baxter for their extramarital dalliances in this musical. What is Promises, Promises? The 2010 revival of the musical starred Sean Hayes and Kristen Chenoweth. And the performance I saw just happened to have a surprise cameo from then popular comedian and talk show host Ellen DeGeneres playing a nurse.
I have 101.3 temperature. You can see it on my thermometer here.
Oh, well, the doctor will take it.
Oh, well, if I can have it back when he's through, it's my only thermometer.
He has his own, as I said earlier. If you would like to have a seat there, and the doctor will be coming soon when I tell him that he will be seeing a man who's sick.
You sound like a ghost.
Oh.
And taking in a musical within a musical, the $600 clue is Dorothy Brock is set to star in Pretty Lady, a new musical directed by Julian Marsh in this show. What is 42nd Street is the answer. The 1980s smash hit musical is of course based on the 1933 Busby Berkeley film of the same name. The visually dynamic film 42nd Street is actually based on a novel by Bradford Ropes from 1932, just 1 year before the film adaptation. 42nd Street was one of several backstage novels Ropes wrote based on his experiences as a performer. There's actually a new wonderful book written by theater historian Maya Cantu all about Bradford Ropes and his backstage novels called Grease Paint Puritan that you should definitely check out if you want to learn more. Okay players, it's time to really turn up the steam heat with the $800 round. But before we do, please do me the honor of liking this video if you're enjoying this week's episode. I'd love for more fine folks like yourselves to discover these videos, and giving it a like helps the YouTube overlords share it with more people. And it makes me feel like $1 million fake Jeopardy dollars. Thanks everyone, I truly do appreciate it. Okay, starting back with Meet Cutes, the first $800 clue is, in this musical, our future lovebirds meet when Elliot Garfield rents a room in an apartment occupied by Paula McFadden and her daughter, who weren't aware there was a room to rent in their apartment. What is The Goodbye Girl is the answer. Based on the Neil Simon film of the same name, The Goodbye Girl sees former Broadway dancer Paula McFadden and her young teenage daughter Lucy after Paula is unexpectedly left by her longtime live-in boyfriend. To make matters worse, the ex has rented out the apartment to someone else, an actor named Elliot. The pair make an uneasy agreement to share the apartment, and as you can imagine, things take a romantic turn. The original film starring Marsha Mason and Richard Dreyfuss is wonderful if you haven't seen it. The musical version originally starred Bernadette Peters and Martin Short as the unexpected roommates. I would have loved to have seen those two together. Your $800 clue for West Side Story is, this is the brilliant director and choreographer for the original production of the musical. Who is Jerome Robbins? Robbins is one of the greatest director-choreographers musical theater has ever known. He was the man behind numerous shows, including A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Peter Pan, The King and I, Gypsy, and Fiddler on the Roof, to name but a few. Though his personal relationship with many in the entertainment world was greatly damaged when Mr. Robbins named names for Joseph McCarthy's communist witch hunt in the 1950s. Let's build a beautiful city for $800. Your clue is, this 2015 musical with a score by Jason Robert Brown starred Rob McClure, Tony Danza, and a whole lot of Elvises. What is Honeymoon in Vegas? Based on the 1992 film of the same name starring James Caan and Nicolas Cage, the musical is sort of an indecent proposal type story, where loving couple Jack and Betsy arrive in Vegas to elope, but Betsy catches the eye of a rich gambler named Tommy Corman, played on stage by Tony Danza. Betsy reminds him of his late wife, and when Tommy arranges a poker game where Jack loses a whopping 58 grand to the professional gambler, it's proposed that Jack's debt would be forgiven if Betsy will spend the weekend with Tommy. Of course, various plot twists and hijinks ensue, including a scene where Jack has to skydive with a bunch of Elvis impersonators. Up next in the Company Way category, the $800 clue is don't be the bunny, according to Caldwell B. Cladwell, the all-controlling president of the UGC, which stands for this. What is the Urine Good Company from the musical Urinetown? Another show that is due for a revival. Urinetown was written by Greg Cotis and Mark Holman. Cotis got the original idea for the hilarious musical when visiting Paris in 1995. He had run out of money and was shocked to find that all public restrooms were not free, and he literally had to choose between eating or using the bathroom. In the world of the musical, mega corporation, the Urine Good Company, or UGC, controls all the water closets with an iron fist, and relieving yourself becomes not a right, but a privilege.
I'm a business gal, you see. I sell the privilege to be. The good Lord made us, so we piss each day until we piss away.
Moving on to the musicals within a musical category, we have a daily double! Yes, we had daily doubles for a hot second a couple episodes ago, and now it's back. The way we do it here is you'll get a two-part question. Answer part one and you get the $800. Answer both parts and you double it to $1,600. Hey-o! So, for a potential big payoff, the clue is in Merrily We Roll Along, Franklin Shepard and Charlie Kringus finally have a big hit on their hands with this musical. For double points, this is the musical Frank and Charlie wrote that they were hoping to get produced before working on the show that would be a hit. That was a toughie. What is Musical Husbands is the answer to part one, and the dastardly hard answer to part two is Take a Left. The pair audition Take a Left for producer Joe Josephson, who in turn hires them to write Musical Husbands instead for his wife Gussie. The scene where the boys audition their new musical for Joe Josephson is a part of the song Opening Doors, one of my all-time favorite Sondheim songs. The original Joe was none other than Jason Alexander, but my favorite Joe has to be this random unknown man here who did the part for the number in the documentary Six by Sondheim.
You gotta have a real taste for maniacs, suddenly I do.
That's great, that's swell, the other stuff as well. It isn't every day I hear a score this strong, but fellas, if I may, there's only one thing wrong. Not a tune you can hum. There's not a tune you go bum 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 de dum. You need a tune to go bum 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 de dum. Give me some melody.
And with that, my Broadway babies, we have reached the big show, the main event. It's the $1,000 round. Play that dramatic music, white boy. Good luck, everyone. Up first in the Meet Cute category, the $1,000 clue is, in this musical with Gershwin tunes, leading man Jimmy Winters meets his lady love, who happens to be a bootlegger, when she hides her contraband spirits at his Long Island estate. What is Nice Work If You Can Get It? Nice Work, which opened on Broadway in 2012, starring Kelly O'Hara and Matthew Broderick, is a rare sort of musical where it's sort of a revival, but not really. Nice Work If You Can Get It is a reworking of the Gershwin musical OK from 1926, but with many story changes and various Gershwin songs added into the score. The musical Crazy for You is another example of this, where it's vaguely based on the musical Girl Crazy. Our last clue about the masterpiece West Side Story is, while police officer Krupke gets his own song, few are likely to remember his superior, a lieutenant named this. Who is Lieutenant Schrank? Schrank is the racist police lieutenant that Krupke answers to. He was played by Corey Stoll in the 2021 remake of the musical. One Last Trip to a Beautiful City gives us the $1,000 clue. In The Most Happy Fella, secondary couple Marie and Herman literally spell out the name of their beloved hometown in this fun song. What is Big D? Okay, before anyone yells at me in the comments, I know that technically Big D isn't the actual name of a city, but a nickname for it. But you know what? It's one of my favorite show tunes, and I wanted to include it. Anyways, as the song goes, it's Big D, my oh yes. That's Big D, little a double L-A-S. And that spells Dallas.
Big D, little A double L-A-S. And that spells Dallas, my darling, darling Dallas. Don't it give you pleasure to confess? That's you're from Big D, my oh yes. I mean Big D, little A double L-A. Big D, little A double L-A. Big D, little A double L-A-S.
The next challenging question comes from the Company Way category. For $1,000, your clue is, this is the company that J. Pierpont Finch rapidly climbs the corporate ladder at in the musical How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. What is Worldwide Wickets is the correct answer. If you got that one right, my guess is that you've been in the show before. Let me know if I'm right about that. J. Pierpont Finch, or Ponty for short, starts as the window washer and gets promoted position by position to chairman of the board by the end of the show. And if you're wondering what a wicket is that the Worldwide Wickets presumably produces, your answer is...
Here, somebody, here, you fellas. Denver has run out of wickets. Call the Worldwide Wicket Factory. Have them send 50,000 two-tone wickets at once. Don't argue with me. Do you want me to have another nervous breakdown?
Who in the hell is that? Where the hell's a factory?
What the hell is a wicket?
Your final $1,000 clue in the musical within a musical category is, this flop musical, with the most literal title ever, is about the production of a show called Sneakers. The show within a show is a hit, but the real show closed on opening night. What is a Broadway musical? Yes, that was the title, a Broadway musical. The score was by the wonderful team of Charles Strauss and Lee Adams of Bye Bye Birdie fame, and the book was by William F. Brown, who had written the book for The Wiz. As I mentioned, a Broadway musical was a Broadway musical about a Broadway musical called Sneakers. The show is essentially about a crass, tasteless white producer putting on a show written by and starring someone black. Strauss and Adams drew from their experiences working on the musical Golden Boy, starring Sammy Davis Jr. What sounds like a solid idea for a musical about a topic sadly still relevant today was apparently grossly mishandled. Reportedly, the show was shallow, cliché, and, perhaps worst of all, dull. Though I must admit, it's a flop I've always been curious about. And now we've reached the final Jeopardy round, players! Tally up your scores so far, because it's time to do some wagering. You've got to decide how confident you feel in the category Old Folks, looking at some elderly characters from musicals. Has everyone gotten their wagers in? Steven? Daryl? Cricket? Yeah, I see you there, Cricket. All good? Okay, here is your final clue. In Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights, this is the person who wins the much sought-after $96,000 from the lottery. Who is Abuela Claudia? The character was originally played on Broadway by Olga Merediz, who was the only original cast member to recreate their role for the film version of In the Heights. I would argue that her big solo, Paciencia y Fe, is the highlight of the already excellent film adaptation. The visuals are stunning, and Miss Meredith's performance is searing.
Mama needs a job. Mama says we're poor. One day you say, vamos a Nueva York. And Nueva York was far, but Nueva York had work. And so we came.
And that's this week's game, my friends. How did you all do? Are you in or out of the money? Be sure to let me know your score in the comments. I really do love hearing from you guys. Next week, I've got a great Patreon picked category coming your way. I absolutely adore all my Patreon patrons for your support. It means everything to me, you guys. If you want to check out the Patreon and maybe help choose some future categories, there is a link to that in the video description, as well as my merch shop with some fun theatery designs there. If you love Broadway Jeopardy, please, pretty please, continue to share these videos on social media. Speaking of social media, you can follow me if you want over on Twitter and or Instagram at @BWayGhostlight. We're coming to the final few rounds of our search for the favorite male solo, and then we're going to do a bunch of polls tackling opening numbers. That should be a lot of fun. But until next week, I'm Mark Bonanni. This is Broadway by Ghostlight. Thanks for playing.